Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm Mike Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I'm here today to help you build your career. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect, or an AWS solutions architect, or an enterprise architect, or a network architect, or pretty much any other technology career. That's why I'm here to help. I've been an architect now for well over 25 years, loved every last second of it, and I've spent more than 2 decades helping people like you get hired at the world's greatest organizations like Apple and Amazon Web Services and Cisco and IBM and Google and Microsoft and Accenture and KPMG and Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, JP Morgan Chase Bank, British Broadcasting System, Barclays Bank, and so many other great companies. The people that I've trained now work at over the last few decades. So I'm here to help you. So come in, bring your questions. And the reason I do this is I know that you can get to your goals by two methods. One is by trial and error. And by doing so, you lose a lot of precious time, effort, and money. And the other way is to listen to those people that have already been successful, that have already made it and have achieved every last goal that you have. And that's why I'm here to help you. Look, I made it to principal architect in less than 2 years. And the reason I got there was I didn't make trial and error. I asked the VP of architecture what he wanted in the perfect architect. And he told me, and I learned those things and nothing else. And that's why I got there a decade or almost 2 decades faster than the majority of my peers. And that's why I'm here for you. So ask us your questions. And while we wait for you to ask any of the questions that you have, let me tell you about some free things that we have to help you in your cloud architect career, solutions architect career, enterprise architect career. So first thing is tomorrow, we have an absolutely free webinar on how to get your first cloud architect job. And it's completely free. It's going to be live on Zoom. We'll talk for approximately 30 minutes. We'll cover the entire spectrum of every skill you need to become an incredible cloud architect. We'll talk about what hiring managers want and the perfect employee. We'll talk about how to skip those HR people that are going to block you when you auto-apply for these things so you don't get auto-rejected. And we'll tell you the skills that you need to get hired. It's completely free. And then after that 30-minute presentation, guess what? We will answer your questions live on Zoom for upwards of an hour and a half. We can have a face-to-face conversation. I can check your competency, and we can do whatever we need to. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And while we're at it, prior to that webinar, and if you want to know how to get your first cloud architect job, guess what? Got a free document that we wrote for you, a free ebook. It will cover every skill. It will cover why tech skills are not enough. It'll cover what architects are, what we do, and it's free. So I want to help you for that. And also, maybe you're an engineer, and maybe you're an architect, and maybe you're not earning as much as you want in your career. We have a completely free guide called Why Tech Skills Are Not Enough. And that's the secret to earning more in tech, getting promoted, and having a wonderful career. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So we're going to come on, ask your questions, and we'll do anything we can to assist you. So I'm going to bring on Alonzo from my team as well. And he and I are here together. Alonzo is my chief marketing officer. He's also an exceptionally good cloud architect. We trained Alonzo. He came to us after wasting like 2 to 3 years doing everything other than architecture by buying courses that were related to systems administration, Python, and everything that has everything to do with engineering and systems administration and nothing to do with architecture. We trained Alonzo. Alonzo graduated from our program. He got hired on the cloud, did cloud architect work, and then we begged him to come back because, Alonzo, I knew he could do so much for our students. If you've got questions about how to build your brand and how to get the world to come to you, Alonzo has 30 plus years of experience in this specific domain. He's our chief marketing officer and an awesome cloud architect. So bring us your questions, ask us your questions, and we'll do what we can to help you. Alonzo, while we're waiting for questions, would you like to say anything to the audience?
Well, thanks. That intro, man. I feel awesome. Everyone, thank you so much for having us. This is Alonzo Coleman, of course. Everything that Mike said has been on point, accurate, and true. Went through a whole gambit of being out in the wilderness, trying to discover the right resources. Came across Mike. We had a great discussion, and the rest is history. So I encourage you all to please understand that the best, closest, most robust education that you can get as a cloud architect is here. Being able to ask your questions, get them answered, and promote your trajectory on becoming a very competent and capable cloud or enterprise architect is right at your fingertips. So I strongly encourage you all, ask your questions. From Jose, Mike. Hi, Mike. I love your program. I'm wondering if it is possible to work in the U.S. as now as I am from Spain.
Okay, I'm going to reread that because Alonzo's internet went in and out when he did that. Hi, Mike. I love your program. I'm wondering whether it is possible to go to work in the U.S. as a foreign national. You are from Spain. Jose, absolutely. The U.S. brings people over constantly on H-1B visas, people that That what happens is we don't have enough people that can do the job in our country, and we bring people over all the time. I've trained a tremendous number of people that have migrated to the US or Canada after our training when they've gotten really good jobs. So the answer is it definitely is. Now, some countries are easier to come from others. For example, my family's from Greece, and it's a lot harder to go from Greece to the US than it would be, say, the UK to the US. But Spain's relatively easy from my experience because, and Spain's a pretty modern country. I haven't been to Madrid or Barcelona in a little while, but I used to go all the time, and I absolutely love it there. So the answer is yes. So here's the thing, Jose, that we have to remember. There is a critical shortage of people that actually have real skills. I mean, there's a shortage. Now, I can find you 1,000,001 certified people that know absolutely nothing in about a minute, but being able to find people that can come in, that can do the job immediately, that can contribute to the company and the company's success, that can make their clients actually successful, that's far and few between. And you can see the results. 70% of most technology projects fail. Over 50% of all cloud architectures are complete disasters, meaning they actually hurt the company that goes there. And that doesn't mean the cloud's not great. The cloud is incredible. The cloud is truly transformational. It will drive digital transformation better than anything you've ever imagined if it's designed right. But you have the right skills, Jose, you can get a job anywhere in the world. US is great. I'd probably work from home in my little village in Greece. I got a nice little house on the beach in Patamos, which I definitely love. And in today's world, I could actually partially work from home there, except for when I visited clients. But yes, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for architects. Now, Jose, I'm going to tell you this right now. While there's tremendous opportunity for architects, there's very limited opportunity for engineers, because much of what engineers used to do can easily be outsourced to artificial intelligence. Code, outsourced to artificial intelligence, it's nothing. Bash shell scripting, nothing. Terraform scripting, nothing. But what we do as an architect is, for example, designing things, interfacing with customers, responding to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, negotiating deals, presenting at conferences, managing stakeholders, having conversations with the C-suite. Nobody can replace us because it's a human job. And even companies that were replacing engineers like IBM, they never replaced their customer-facing people, which are like their architect or their sales engineers or their sales rep. So, Jose, it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time.
Hope you can hear me now, Mike. Tu and Hughes, when you're talking about your brand and building your brand, what do you mean and what impact will that have for getting hired? Tu, it's everything, because before you're able to showcase your competency and capability, you have to connect with the hiring manager, with the recruiter, being able to showcase before you even interact with them what your competency via LinkedIn posts, in person, online presence, how you handle yourself, your diction, your communication skills, your writing skills, your ability to share an idea, a solution quickly, succinctly, and effectively. These are all a part of your brand. It's basically an association of what people think about you when you are not in their presence. Okay, so it is a very, very, very important element in who you are as a cloud architect. Further, as you continually grow in the architectural space, professional space, the more you know, the more you solve, the more relationships you cultivate and strengthen and help. That you're basically leaving a breadcrumbs of who you are and how effective you are in the business, and that attracts the right people for the right things at the right time. So, Tu and Hughes, your brand is very important. How you handle yourself is very important, and it will follow you and shape your very career for the rest of your life. So if you have any more questions, please feel free, as anyone else, get on a video conference call with me. I'm more than happy to share these details.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that, Tu and Hughes, a little bit. I'm going to ask you a question. Which would you purchase if you had the money, and which would you purchase if the cost was the same, a Ferrari or a Chevy? I bet you picked the Ferrari. The Mercedes or the Chevy? I bet you picked the Mercedes. Why can Apple charge $1,500 for a silly phone like this? Apple's got such a strong brand that people actually want it. The stronger your brand is, the more people are willing to pay for you, and the more likely they are to get you. So I've been an architect now for 25 years. I've got a brand of driving transformation for my people. I've got a brand for my architecture's work. And I got a brand for delivering and making people successful. How would I use that? Well, if I literally were to make a LinkedIn post, I'm looking for my new role. I'm looking for a company where I can take my 25 years experience and help that company drive transformation, improve the revenue opportunities, decrease their operating costs, improve the customer experience. Who wants help like that? I've helped these clients in the past. I could get 20 offers in a single day because I have that big brand. So one of my students, Robert Welch, he followed our branding work, and every day he made a LinkedIn post, and he had 3 to 10 people that reached out to interview him. That's how important your brand is. So you can have a strong brand where the world comes to you, or you can have a weak brand. Now, Two-Man Hughes, there's a lot of people out there that say all you need to do is post on LinkedIn to build your brand. Let me tell you, an empty brand is nothing. It's like having a beautiful box with wrapping paper and there's nothing inside it. Once that person sees you or sees the empty box, they're not going to be there. But a good brand, a strong brand will bring you opportunities like you can never even imagine. So I want you to be the Mercedes, which means I want you to be an expert on something. I want you to deliver. I want the world to see your expertise, and I want the world to come to you, Two-Man Hughes. That's the way, and that's why we build such a brand.
Couldn't have said it better, Mike. Simon, how deep should a cloud architect understand the shared responsibility model, since it's critical to customers and and also varies between cloud service providers?
Simon, I want you to understand this. The shared responsibility model is nothing. I know it's something that they can fill up a certification guide with, but it's really nothing. Here's what it really means. You're responsible for maintaining your stuff, and the cloud provider maintains the underlying infrastructure. That's it. So what does that mean? It means the cloud provider theoretically is managing their underlying network. Theoretically. It means they're managing, their data centers to make sure they have redundant power and backup generators and redundant cooling. It means that on their underlying servers where they have their hypervisors, they're patching those hypervisors. But what it means is all your stuff, those virtual machines sitting on that shared infrastructure, you have to manage your virtual machines. Anything you store in their storage area network, the underlying infrastructure of their RAID arrays for their block storage and object storage and file storage is secure, but not your storage. You have to secure that. When you create your VPC, if you're going to connect your VPC to the internet, your demilitarized zones, which is where your exposed stuff is, you have to secure that. And you can look at basically the stuff that's not going to protect you, like a cloud provider's WAF, or you can use your next generation firewalls. That's you. You've got your virtual machines, right? How do you secure them? Do you have to patch these systems? Do you have to remove unnecessary services, close certain ports on those systems? That's on you. Do you want to allow that security group to be the only protection on your virtual machine? Or do you want to put a host-based firewall on that virtual machine with some host-based IDS, IPS systems? Do you want to put your anti-malware on your systems, or you want to just assume that it's done for you? I promise you, if you don't take these extra steps and you only use the stuff the cloud provider tells you, you're probably going to get hacked. So really, that's all it really means. So I'd like you to think about this. You buy a new car, here's the shared responsibility. You buy your brand new Mercedes after you get your cloud architect job. You're responsible for putting fuel in it, right? You're responsible for changing the oil. If you don't change the oil and that engine fails, it's on you, not on them. But if you buy your brand new Mercedes and you drive it off the lot and the air conditioner falls apart after 3 months, they fix that. That's the shared responsibility model that's covered by your warranty. That's all it is. So get rid of all the fluff. Get rid of all these silly names that are covered in certifications and really boil it down to what it is and the most essential things, those first principles, and you're going to get it. So in all cloud providers, think of it this way. You manage your stuff. They manage their stuff. Now, it brings you down to the cloud. What is the cloud? Get rid of this on-demand access to whatever stuff that they like to babble about in the certification. All cloud computing is renting space in someone else's data center. So I'd like you to think about it this way, Simon. If you were going to build a house, everything in that house is yours, right? You own it. You're responsible for all of it. Now, let's say you buy a condominium. When you buy the condominium, the people maintain the outside of the condominium. Somebody cuts the grass and maintains the grounds. Somebody maintains the roofs on the condominiums, but you have to maintain and insure your stuff on the inside of your property. It's the same thing. And a cloud is really like a hotel. The hotel itself is the data center, and your internal systems are like your hotel rooms in there. It's just a shared space. So I hope that answers your question. Simon, please ask more. Please ask deeper if we didn't get there. I really want to make sure we get your questions answered, and I want to help you build your career. For those of you that are here that have questions, please ask them. I want to help you. And Alonzo wants to help you.
From Rashawn, what resources would you recommend me studying to learn anything necessary to get better at my technical knowledge? I'm also actively working on my business presentation skills.
Well, Rashawn, let's do two things. One, I want to make it clear, you'll never learn everything necessary. Unless, the stories about vampires are true, and you can live 3 and 5 and 10,000 years, then you will have time to learn everything. So let's talk about what you do need to learn versus what you don't need to learn. And I'm going to make it very clear. You're better off being a better leader and understanding people and being able to build and cultivate the best teams of the world of a varied background. Have yourself your networking experts, have your identity and access management experts, have your security experts, have your DevOps experts, have your AI experts, have your data scientist experts, and lead that team. But what are we really talking about? What's the cloud? Rashawn, the cloud is somebody else's network in a data center. So what does that mean? It means you have to learn the network in the data center. So if we think about networking, and Rashawn, I know you're a student, so I'll give you a little more than I would normally talk about. What are we talking about? We're talking about IP addressing, right? Subnetting, supernetting. We're talking about routing and routing protocols like BGP. We're talking about switching concepts in the network, right? Things like VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, link aggregation groups, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree. And we're talking about your wide area networking links, whether they be VPNs, whether they be via like IPsec, whether they be a private line, an SD-WAN, or a SASE-WAN. Now we start thinking about those data center things, right? Well, what are the data center things? They're compute, right? What is compute? It's the same virtual machines in the cloud that we've been using for the last 20 some years in the data center. VMware invented the modern hypervisor that we use in 1999. Okay? So there's containers and container orchestration, things like Kubernetes. Same thing in the network in the data center. Storage area networks, right? Not how to configure these things, Rashawn. Understanding how they work, how they're architected, and how they're managed. What are the common storage area networks and in data centers and clouds for the last 30 years? Well, object storage, block storage, and file storage. Then we get into databases, right? Guess what? It's the same databases in the data centers and the cloud. There's nothing new here for the last 30 years. So we're talking about relational databases, NoSQL databases, and data warehouses. Now we're also talking about security stuff, right? So that means identity and access management systems like Active Directory. It means firewalls, next generation firewalls, VPN concentrators, IDS, IPS systems, setting up demilitarized zones, understanding encryption strategies. Starting to understand why I say you can't learn it all? And, writing a security policy. So the key is to learn as much of that as you can. And Rashawn, you're one of our students, so follow the program and then you'll get there. And Rashawn, since you are our students, not only do we have that intro to technology section, which covers all these technologies, which I want you to master, and not only do we have over 700 hours of videos where we cover these things, but there's also some recommended and required reading inside that list that I really want you to read. Go read that Bassam Halabi book on internet routing architectures and the many, many more that are in there. Rashawn, I spoke to you yesterday. I want to thank you for your service in the U.S. Navy. I really appreciate everything you've done for our safety and our security. I saw an energy, enthusiasm, and a fire in you that really made me proud, and I can't wait for your success. So Rashawn, feel free to ask any more questions. We're thrilled to have you both in our program, and we're thrilled to have you on this channel right now. So please ask your questions, and let Alonzo and I do anything we can to help you. For those of you that are here, ask your questions. We want to help you.
From Biomom, how the path to the cloud security architect leads to the enterprise. What is the path to the cloud security architect that leads to the enterprise architect role? Is that path a good start to get to becoming an enterprise architect, Mike?
Well, Barry, man, let's talk about it this way. And boy, I have a friend, Barrymore, from Trinidad, and he and I have been friends probably for 20 years, and your name reminds me of him. It makes me smile. So let's talk about this. The cloud architect role would be a much easier transition to the enterprise architect role than a cloud security architect role. So let's really talk about these architecture roles and what they really do, because your question is really great, and I love talking about architecture roles because I've been an architect of every kind for the last 25 years. At the top of all the architects that are actually there. So what are we really talking about? At the top, we've got the Chief Information Officer, and right underneath that Chief Information Officer, we're going to have our enterprise architects. And that enterprise architect is a business executive. And what they're really doing is they're aligning the organization's strategy, their people, their processes, and technology to make that business so much more efficient. So we'll kind of keep that. So let's talk about what we mean by that. So an enterprise architect will speak to the executives. They'll find the vision for that business. They'll find the mission for that business, and they know where the business wants to go to. This year, like the end of the quarter, the end of the year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and 20 years from now. And we enterprise architects need to understand all of that, because we're going to design a solution to improve their performance. Let's keep that to the back of your mind. So there's that. The next thing we enterprise architects need to do is understand the business processes that organization goes to. So how the processes work today, and how do we have to re-architect the processes or how things get done for the future. So that's related to process engineering. So keep that in the back of your mind. We have to understand the process. For example, how does sales occur? How is the product created? How is customer service created? All of that, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. The next thing we need to do is evaluate the organization's technology. What technology do they have today? What's working well? What's not working well? And what do they need to re-architect for the future? And then we need to figure out a governance strategy, etc., create our statements of work, and then figure out which people we need to actually build the architecture, because nobody builds it. That's the enterprise architect. Now, if we look at the generic cloud architect role, if there's no enterprise architects, the cloud architect needs to do that. If not, and if we're dealing with a cloud architect, they're going to be not a solutions architect. The cloud architect is going to be prepared for the data center and the cloud. And a lot of organizations at this point, actually 98% are multi-cloud, and more organizations are going hybrid cloud. And why is that? Because the public cloud is 2 to 3 times more expensive for everything we do. The security is less, and the performance is less in the public cloud. So we cloud architects are going to be designing that system. And ideally, our cloud architects start with the business goals. Ideally, then they start with the business processes. Ideally, and then they figure out the technology and they design a technology solution to optimize the business processes. Now, underneath your cloud architects and your enterprise architects, you're going to have your specialty architects. And they're your techie gurus. That's the security person. The cloud security person is only focused on the cloud. They're not really focused on transformation at this point. They're focused on the security. So you're going to be one step further from that enterprise architect role. So Barryman, I'd say become a generic cloud architect and build up your business acumen, your leadership skills, your sales skills, your executive presence, your emotional intelligence, and then that's the way you're going to get there. So typically speaking, the closer you are to tech, Barryman, the less you're going to earn. The closer you are to tech, the less respect you're going to actually get from the executives that you're going to want to be promoting you into these VP roles, these director roles, or these enterprise architecture roles. So the path is, if you wanted to start as a security architect, you'd probably have to go from a cloud security architect to a cloud architect to an enterprise architect. Or instead of becoming a cloud security architect, you could just become a cloud architect and get extra business acumen, extra leadership, extra executive presence, extra emotional intelligence, and do the following. We actually have a program where we train enterprise architects, and we also put them through cloud architect training. And here's the reason why. Barryman, 90% of the enterprise architects that I've worked with wouldn't know the difference between an IP address and a mainframe. They're business executives. They're your MBA types. They don't need an MBA, but they're your MBA types. So realistically, where they are is related to things like, think an executive. Think the guy that looks like Alonzo right now. He's your perfect enterprise architect. He shows up in a suit. He's got some presence or executive presence. He's there, and he's there to solve business problems. A good cloud architect like Alonzo is doing the same thing. And why, Barry Moore, do I say a good cloud architect is doing that? And here's the reason. The majority of cloud architectures fail, and there's a lot of reasons cloud architectures fail. First thing I want to say is certifications. Certifications tend to create bias in the architect by whatever's in the certification. Go serverless, everybody. Or use this proprietary thing because the certification's to get you excited about these things. The next thing is bias. Barry, in mind, how often have you been on LinkedIn and somebody says, you have to go serverless. You need a DevOps culture. You need to get off of those mainframes. You got to get off of their regular networking using. It's no good. Barryman, run from all these people, and here's the reason why. They've got the problem solved without knowing the information. Imagine going to a doctor, which basically is the same job as an architect, and them saying, when you walk in the room, them saying, I don't need to hear from you, here's your yellow pill. Everybody gets a yellow pill because it's the right thing for you. Diabetes, cancer, heart attack, sore throats, sinus infections all get a yellow pill. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in tech, is the bias that's actually created where people don't actually understand the problem and solve them. And that gets mitigated by architects having the business acumen. If an architect is designing a system to improve business performance and they're not taught business, they can't do architecture. How are they going to improve something they don't understand? If the architect is focused on hands-on configuration, they can't be able, and learning that versus learning how systems work and how to design them, they'll know nothing about architecture. Kind of keep that in mind. So what I would say is, go find your first architect job, improve your business acumen, your leadership, your sales, show up to work in better clothing, improve your presentation, improve your presence, and wow, those enterprise architecture opportunities you're going to get are absolutely great. We've got an incredible enterprise architect program and cloud architect program, and because most enterprise architects don't understand the tech, we actually have our enterprise architects trained in our cloud architect program and enterprise architecture at the same time, where we give them that extra business acumen, that extra leadership, that extra executive presence, that extra business process re-engineering, and all those other things to make sure that our students and clients are successful. Hope I answered your question, and please, please, please ask more.
From Sudhir, there are so many programs in the market like Adrian Cantrell, Digital Cloud. Everyone says that they are good. However, what's the difference in your course and how many days does it take to become a cloud architect?
So here I'm going to answer your question. The first thing I'm going to tell you is I'm not going to comment on their training, but I'm going to tell you that we take all the people that are trained by them and then we retrain them to be architects, including Alonzo. Alonzo spent 2 years doing that. Alonzo couldn't get hired and then we retrained him. And most of my students come from these programs. And let me explain why to you. They don't teach anything related to cloud architecture. Zero. And let me explain the difference. To be an architect, here is your job suit here. You've got to meet with the client and ask their business goals. You have to understand their business. Because if you don't, and after you understand their business, then you have to evaluate how their work gets done inside of these businesses. From there, you have to collect the information. You have to build an architecture team. You have to lead a team of 5 to 50 people for the next 6 months to design the architecture. You will have to create architecture documents which explain the technology. You will have to build a business case inclusive of an ROI model to show the organization why they should purchase your solution. Then you're going to be giving presentations constantly. Then you're going to be selling, and then you're going to be negotiating these deals. I can tell you that none of those programs teach anything related to that. Here's what they teach. The name of an AWS service, and they do a good job of that. And they teach how to configure that service, which is great for a cloud admin because cloud admins touch the technology. Sudhir, do you know what cloud architects don't do in their job? Or even solutions architects? They don't configure the technology at all. They go to the client and they ask the client about their business. None of those courses that are out there actually teach this, which is why we have to train them. Then we have to ask the right questions, and none of these courses even touch the right questions that are out there. Then from there, we actually have to understand the technology. And Sudhir, while these courses do a great job teaching you how to configure the technology, they don't teach you the underlying technology at all, because they're created by non-architects, but that's neither here nor there. So it's one thing to know how to configure the technology, and it's another thing to design it. So Sudhir, I'm going to tell you this. Imagine the people that actually build a bridge outside. You know what they're not asked to do? To design it. Because learning how to build doesn't teach you how to design. It's a different set of skills. How about the people that design hotels? You think they carry a hammer, a nail, and a screwdriver with them? Or do you think they get special training inside of architecture training? So there's that. So unless your architecture course teaches you enough business acumen to read a balance sheet, read a financial statement, and understand how to help an organization optimize top line revenue as well as net income, you can't design anything. If you're not prepared in one of these programs to speak to C-suite executives and address their cares, you're not going to be prepared to be an architect. If these programs don't address how to lead a large team of people, unfortunately, you're not going to have any idea how to be an architect. If these courses don't teach you how to respond to RFIs, RFPs, and RFQs, which they do not, you'll not know how to be an architect. If these companies don't teach you how to give a presentation, you're not going to be an architect. And you know what the last phase of an architect interview is? A presentation. And that's where all those techies fall apart. Now, if you can't explain the technology, and that means what is the tech, how does the tech work, and why to use it, you can't do it. So these are hands-on techie, I want to be a cloud admin skills. And that's why we have to retrain everybody from all these programs. It's not that they're bad. If your whole goal is to take an exam and pass the exam, they're terrific. They'll get you through your certification. Although I don't believe anybody should pay for certification, and that's why we produce free certification training. But that's what they do. We take those graduates and we turn them into architects and we get them hired. And you know, I can tell you right now that we've retrained people from every boot camp you can possibly imagine that teach hands-on engineering. And Sudhir, I'm going to ask you this question. The question I have for you is, how often have you gone to a web page on your browser? That's hands-on experience. Now, do you know what happens when you type www.gocloudcareers.com into your browser? If you're an architect, you better. But the hands-on experience won't teach you that. So there's different goals of training. We train architects. Other people's training is based on finish your paper certification. I only teach what I know. I only teach how to be an architect. It's what I've done for the last 25 years. I'm an expert at it. Some of these organizations basically take a certification and then instantly they teach it as if they knew it. So I'm not saying anything negative about anyone's, but I can tell you we retrain all of those people. But their training does serve a purpose and it helps people pass exams. Alonzo, you want to add to that?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, from a personal standpoint, I really wanted to become a cloud architect. And a lot of the questions that I was asking, they weren't unfortunately able to meet the needs that I wanted, you know, the things that I needed to, answering about what a cloud architect does. And so unfortunately, my learning kind of ended there, and I needed to seek what I really wanted out of becoming a cloud architect and doing my due diligence, understanding little by little what a cloud architect does. And to my surprise, it had very little to do with the technology outside of understanding what it is, what it does, and when we would use it for business transformative solutions. So I definitely understand that everyone has to, quote unquote, shop around, understand what the value is, and be able to make their own determinations. But what I can say, Sudhir, is that I am living, breathing proof that I've been there, I've done that. My training goes as far back as the years ago deprecated Linux Academy, and I arrived here, and the training that I received here is where and how I became successful in the cloud architecture space where I really wanted to be. So do your due diligence, but I'm sure that what we have to offer here is where you need to be.
And I think he asked one question which we didn't address, is how long it's going to take to be a cloud architect. So yes. I'm going to tell you, if you've not worked in tech before, or even if you've worked in tech as an engineer, it's going to take 6 to 12 months with training like ours. I will tell you that even if you've knocked out the AWS Solutions Architect Professional, it's still going to take you the 6 to 9 months, because that teaches you a name of a service and how to configure it. And you still have to learn all those other architect skills. So about 6 to 12 months with the right training. About 3 to 6 years by trying to go certification and piecing it together yourself. And a lot of our people had been training for 3 years plus before we retrained them. And then in about 6 months, we got them hired.
And that's the critical thing as well, is that tech is like saying, I want to study animals. Well, which kind of animals? Invertebrates, vertebrates, cold-blooded, warm-blooded, avian, omnivores. I mean, there's so many things that tech is just, it's a world, okay? And trying to find the right training for the right things you need to learn is critical, because it could mean the difference between 6 to 12 months or 12 minimum to 3 to 5 years to finally get where you need to go. So making sure that you have the right instructor who's been there, done that, trained it, and worked across multiple roles with multiple Fortune 1 and Fortune 500 organizations is going to be a major difference between what is being taught out there. From Simon, do you have any recommended cloud architects to follow on LinkedIn or YouTube other than those specializing in AWS or Azure solutions? Also, the video you collaborated with David Linthicum was great.
So, man, I recommend following David Linthicum. So here's what I recommend and don't recommend. I recommend you listening to the best of the best. I would listen to John Chambers and the things that he talks about. He's incredible. I would follow Sanjay Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and what they talk about. I would follow Lisa Su. I would follow the AMD and NVIDIA. I think she's AMD, but I'd follow the NVIDIA CEO as well. I would follow the SVPs of, say, Cisco, the senior vice presidents of IBM. They're all involved in architecture in some way. I would not follow somebody who specializes in AWS and Azure, and here's the reason why. They're focused on their own company's product, and they're going to be biased by their own company's product. And you need people that are not biased by anything. David Linthicum is a good friend. He and I collaborate on an incredible number of things, and I respect him and he respects me, so I would follow him on cloud. So I have a rule when it comes to who to follow. And I'm going to let you know the levels of architects so you can understand why I say this. At the lowest level of architect, we have like an associate solutions architect or an associate cloud architect. You know what that is, Simon? It's an intern. And what do I mean by an intern? It's not an architect role. I've trained so many of these people in my life. What happens is you take a kid that's got good grades in high school that you think is really smart, and you put them into a training program, and you pay them to be a trainee while they're your students. And if they graduate, they become a full solutions architect or a full sales rep or a full sales engineer when they're done their training program. And if not, they're fired. And then they go do something else, like start a TikTok channel or a YouTube channel or something like that, or they get a job in another career. Next, we have the intro solutions architect, that first level. I wouldn't follow them either. Even a senior solutions architect, and here's why. I've got students whose first job was a senior solutions architect, and believe me, they were good when they were hired. But they still haven't figured out all the nuances of the architecture career yet, which means in many cases, they don't even know how they got there. Sometimes it's sheer luck, sometimes it's meeting the right person, and sometimes it's skill, but you really don't know. So I wouldn't listen to any first level architects at all. Now, once you reach the principal architect or the distinguished architect kind of people, that's where you're seeing some real architects. So if you've got someone that is a principal architect at Microsoft, I think John Saville, even though I don't typically like to listen to the proprietary people, he's going to know something. Why? He's actually a real architect, a real one, and he's already made it to the top. So principal architects and distinguished architects I would listen to. Director level people I would listen to because they're already successful. They know how to be successful. VP level people I would listen to, and SVP people I would listen to. So that's who I would follow. There's some good people at Deloitte to put out some great content out there. There's some good Accenture people out there. Nutanix puts out some good content from time to time. Aviatrix puts out some good content from time to time. But you follow those CEOs of this company and you can see it. And, that's what I really recommend. And again, I have a lot of respect for David Linthicum. He writes a blog article constantly. He makes plenty of videos. He and I collaborate constantly. So I would say David Linthicum would be someone I would follow in addition to us, because he and I, and if you actually hear David Linthicum and I speak, you're going to notice that we're kind of saying similar things. And here's why. We've both reached that pinnacle of the architect level. And because we're there, where no matter what, if he was at Deloitte, if I was at Cisco, we're doing the same job. We're coming in there as real strategy consultants. We're truly learning their business, and we have enough knowledge of their business. We're learning how that business operates. And Simon, a guy like David or I could spend 6 months on a client site just trying to figure out how the business operates and what their needs are, long before we can even think about the architecture. So those would be the people that I would listen to, but I'd stay away from anybody that hasn't had a lot of experience. You know, when I was a kid and I did my MBA program, here was the rule they said to me. They said, Mike, look for people with gray hair or no hair. Chances are they probably that have big titles. They've been there and they've done it. They said if someone looks like a kid, they might be really smart, but they may lack experience. And there's lots of people that are kids that are smart. Let me tell you, I've met some really young people. I've met some 14-year-old hackers that you wouldn't even believe how smart they are that could teach me incredible things. But look for lots of time. And why is this? You know, I'll tell anybody, and I'm going to have a show with some CCIAs one day soon on this channel. And we're going to say the CCIA was entry level. And everybody is going to say, wait, a certification that costs $15,000 to $50,000 to pass, that 3+ million people have attempted and only 60,000 have passed, and you're going to say that's intro level? And Simon, I'm going to tell you why it's intro level. When you finish something like that, you now have the credibility and the clout to be put on the projects that really force you to learn. And that's where you learn. And that's where you get better. And that's truly, truly, truly where you become great. So follow the people that have been there, that have done it, that have reached pinnacle. Now, I don't want you to follow somebody with 30 years experience that's still junior level. Please don't follow them. I'm looking for the principal. And if you have a 28-year-old principal architect, follow them because they're great to be a principal architect, unless it's at their own company where they made up their own titles. And you'll see lots of principal architects that have never been hired by anybody that have made up their own title. But real companies, you should be good. Alonzo, you want to add to that? And please ask your questions if you have them. We want to help you.
I couldn't have said it better. I've had so many different conversations and shared articles about David Linthicum, and a lot of thought leaders that have been there, done that, contributed so many different ways across so many dimensions, understanding how to right size architectures, edge, AI, and how to understand what needs to happen for people to lock down those large language models, encoders, decoders. I mean, we're going in and we can go in depth about everything, but overall, they understand a wide spectrum of cloud-related technologies and resources. They've been in the game for 30 years. So that says a lot about who people listen to, the solutions that they brought forth, just like Mike has as well, and how we can help bring to bear what we've learned and how we can apply for our own respective cloud careers. So these are the things, but one thing that I definitely would underscore for Mike, like what Mike said, is that look for agnostic thought leaders, okay? Yeah. There are a lot of people doing their jobs. They may have agnostic knowledge, but because they are in a technology space, in a technology company, they're going to be subjective, if you will, to their own particular companies. They're doing their jobs, and that's what they're supposed to do. But if there's a particular person who's able to extrapolate a lot of what the agnostic is and how to be successful and understanding that a broad brush cloud service provider infusion of your environment, those are the people you need to avoid. Focus on people who are focused on what's going on in the industry, how to be successful, how to use the cloud in the right way for the right workloads, and understanding that, like I said before, all of the cloud, it's not an end all to be all. So follow those people. For Michael, after meeting the client and understanding the requirements, you have to build a team. Can you explain how you go about building the team, Mike?
Absolutely, Michael. So let's say I work on a project, and let's say it's me, and I'm working on $1 billion architecture, because that's typically the only thing I deal with at this point. So I'm going to meet with the client, and I'm going to understand their business goals. Once I understand their business goals, then I have an idea of what they need. Now, if I don't know what they need, I have no idea what they need to design. So now, Michael, I met with my client. I could be working at a Cisco, an IBM, an Accenture, a Deloitte, a KPMG, a Capgemini, now Microsoft, AWS, it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to go to my manager. And when I go to my manager, I'm going to say, let's say Alonzo's my manager. I'm going to say, hi, Alonzo. I want to tell you about this opportunity I'm working on, and I'm going to need your help. I'm working on this opportunity for XYZ Bank. And the opportunity seems to be between $300 million and $500 million. Now, based upon our conversations, based upon our relationship, based upon my past experience, I can estimate that we've got a 75% chance of winning this opportunity if we do it right. What I'm going to need to make this happen is going to be about $10 million of staff for the next 6 months. I am going to need one enterprise architect to join me, a solution architect that's got skills in AWS, Azure, and Google to join me. I'm going to need a data scientist. I'm going to need a network architect. I'm going to need some DevOps engineers. I'm going to need a cloud security architect. I'm going to need an IAM architect. I'm going to need a generative AI architect at the same time. I'm also going to need some cloud engineers that are going to get deep in the nitty gritty to help us architects out while we're focusing on the business, their specialties on the tech. Then, Michael, what I'm going to do is I am going to, with my manager's help, schedule a meeting with the appropriate people. Maybe a VP of sales or an SVP of sales or even executive VP of sales. Potentially the chief technology officer at my company, like if I'm at a vendor like AWS. Then from there, I'm going to be going and creating some documentation around this. I'm going to be escalating it with the management, and I'm going to be with my manager or by myself, speaking to the chief technology officer, speaking to these senior vice presidents, speaking to the VPs of architecture in order to justify why I need their people. Then look, now I've got what, 30 people, 20 people, all kinds of good people, but if I put them together, they're not going to work like a team. So now I'm going to have to get these people together. I'm going to, entertain them, take them to lunches and dinners and drinks. I'm probably going to get them together for a couple of fun events, and then I'm going to start building the team. I'm going to build the team. I'm going to create the structure of the team. I'm going to create a leader for the team, because in the end, it's not a democracy. Somebody at the top has to be able to make decisions after getting input from everybody else. Decisions by committee never work. That's why it takes 10 years to do something in a university, which a business can do inside of a month, because the decisions by committee don't work. Then I'm going to have to nourish these people, and I'm going to take the people that work on this project and get them excited and keep them motivated, which is your leadership skill. I can tell you, Michael, in 1 year, I spent over $100,000 of company money just on entertaining a team for one of these billion-dollar architectures. But that's what it took to keep everybody on board, to keep them excited and to keep them moving forward. So those are the things that I would highly recommend. Alonzo, why don't you talk about it? You're an expert with team building. I got to address something real quick.
Absolutely, Mike. I think one of the things that is very key to being an effective leader is being able to rally the troops without any authority that you have over them. Okay. So being able to understand what gets them excited, what keeps them in the game mentally, what do they really look for in a leader? Because a lot of them, they've probably been there, done that. They probably had their share of bad leaders, and they know what to look for to be effective in all ways from the full life cycle of the cloud architecture project. So I would definitely recommend being a positive person, a problem solver. People are going to have, unfortunately, personal issues that may overlap with the progression of the project. No yelling, no negativity. Being able to be a friend, be a leader, being able to showcase that I am here for you. I am here to provide a very positive experience, not only for the benefit of the project, but because you may want to work with these excellent resources as well. It also builds in your brand as being an effective leader who can take the proverbial football into the end zone, score that touchdown, and win the game every time. And these are the people you want to take with you. These are the people who may not even have, say, for instance, the skill set as others. Possible and great opportunity for you to build their skills up, increase their confidence, and they will remember you for it. So always think about when you're setting forth a project and an end result for that, think about the people you want to take with you, how they can get you to the finish line, and how you can build those relationships long after the project's gone and over with. From Abdallah, is there any video from inside your cloud architect course to check if you can understand you, to better understand you and your explanations?
Abdallah, we don't actually post the internal videos to our course to anyone. But Abdallah, we've got about 700 videos on our YouTube channel where you can see if you can understand us. You can ask us questions right now and see if you can understand us. And we've made plenty of technology videos for you to see that as well. So feel free to watch any of our YouTube videos. Feel free to come to our webinar tomorrow. On that webinar, you can not only see us present, but you can ask us questions as well, and we'd be more than honored to do so. But for copyright purposes, we do not allow anybody to see the internal work of our students, of our course. But, feel free to watch any of our 700 plus YouTube videos and see if you understand the explanations. Please come tomorrow. We'll talk about the role, and I'm sure you'll do good. I don't think you'll have a hard time understanding us. Here's why people have a hard time understanding most people. And I'm going to tell you, if I took, even being a cloud architect and a data center architect and a network architect and an enterprise architect, for fun one day, I actually looked at all those AWS certification courses out there, and you know what? I didn't understand a word of them. And you know why I didn't understand a word of them? Because none of the people that put those courses together were actually architects. And if you don't know something expertly, you can't explain it simply. So I think it was Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. Mm-hmm. So when you take a course and you hear blah, 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 it's because the presenter has no idea what they're talking about. So how, Abdullah, did I actually learn how to explain complicated things? Well, I'm going to tell you it's my last job, actually. So in my initial job, I practiced internal medicine. And that's how I actually learned how to explain the disease process to people and medications and why medications would help them. I would explain the types of surgery they were going to receive and how those processes and procedures would go and why it would help them. So for me, that's been my life, is explaining complicated things to regular people. But come to our presentation, watch any of our videos on our YouTube channel, and I'm pretty sure you'll understand our explanations real well.
From Diggleman. Hey, Mike, if I ever wanted to get a more senior role, as he's at Microsoft right now, should you apply internally or look outside of the organization?
Diggleman, if you are who I think you are, and I know you're who I think you are, you took our course and you just got hired by Microsoft. Congratulations. But if you want to get a bigger role, here's what I would do, and here's what I have done. I wore a good suit every day to work, a good one. Spent some money on it, but it was worth it. While I was there, I focused on my executive presence, my leadership skills, my sales skills, and my emotional intelligence. And then, poof, I moved into a bigger role. When people started asking me to do hands-on techie stuff, I did the things that were in my area of expertise, and the things that were not in my area of expertise, I said, I can find somebody, and I built a team, and I did it. And that's how I moved out of those roles into bigger and bigger and bigger roles. I showed myself as a leader. So first, Engelman, congratulations on that Microsoft job. I'm really thrilled we had the opportunity to work together and you're there. Keep taking our training. Please keep staying our course. Focus more on those emotional intelligence. Focus more on those executive presence. Focus more on the leadership. And maybe, Dingelman, if you want, even add the enterprise architect modules, because that's the training for the big, big, big stuff. All those executive things that you're there, but, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So I hope that actually helps. So ask more questions, Dingelman. I know who you are. I've enjoyed working with you. Mr. C, I'm going to call you instead. And please keep asking questions.
Back to Abdallah. If I take the cloud architecture course, will I get a job immediately, even if I do not have any job experience?
Well, Abdallah, I want to answer both sides of this. If you take our course and do the work, you should get hired, because our course is until you are hired. So we don't have anybody finish the course and then try to get a job afterwards. Graduation for us is when you are hired. So if you do the class and do the work and you don't quit, you will be hired, because we will never quit on you unless you quit on yourself. Does experience matter? Competency matters, not experience. And I'm going to give you some examples. So, and Alonzo, the answer to that is yes. So here's what I mean. So let's talk about Debbie Griffin. Never worked in tech. We trained her and she's now working at Credera over in England. We can talk about Pierre Dassault. He was working on sailboats before we trained him, but now he's working at LeaseWeb as a cloud architect. We can talk about Wallace Agana, who was the sales rep, and we got him hired as an enterprise architect as his first tech job ever. While we're at it, we can talk about Al Legister, another sales rep, and that's why I love the sales background, got his first job after our training as a senior solution architect at Deloitte. Noah Parker was a social worker, first tech job as a solution architect at a company called Ahead after we trained him. So Vladimir was a 24-year-old college student when we trained him. We got him his first job at North Highland as a solution architect. Jennifer Ema, by comparison, was a mental health tech. We trained her and she got her first solutions architect job over at JP Chase. Now we get into Jermaine Houston, a guy that I really love, a Jamaican guy, a fun guy. He was selling landscaping gear before we trained him, and now he's working at Southern New Hampshire University as an enterprise architect. Now we can talk about Daniel Bosu, a 20-year-old kid. Honestly, I wish he was my own son. I really think so highly of this kid. That's how much I respect him. He didn't even graduate high school. We trained him when we got him hired at JP Chase. Now, we had to retrain him. He wasted like $35,000 on a boot camp, which taught him nothing other than administration. And we got him hired right afterwards. While we're at it, we can talk about Jordan Kitko. He's going to be presenting at our next conference. He was a college student hired by AWS as a solution architect. And I don't mean an associate solution architect. I mean a real solution architect after our training program with AWS. I would talk about Delroy Bad. He's another kid that I really like. He comes and visits me in Florida all the time. He's from the Caribbean, a really fun guy. He's somebody that'll listen to reggae with me, because if you know me, you know I love reggae. And he got hired as a security architect, a cloud security architect for CDW. Now Lenny is a video editor, and wow, he is a great solution architect. We trained him and he got hired at Arrow Electronics after our training. Again, first tech job that we're actually talking about. Jeffrey West was a geologist doing some kind of weird geospatial imaging for oil fields. I can't even understand it, but we got him hired at Kalian as his first tech job as a solutions architect. Of course, we've got Richard Ferrari. He was working at a bank as a banker. We trained him. We got him hired as MUFG Bank as a cloud architect when we were done with him. Amranth, we trained. He got him his first tech job at Bell Media. Really neat guy. Arun S., we got him hired at TELUS as his first cloud architect job, and he was working at Home Depot before we trained him. Ivan Tamba, wow, you want to meet an interesting, impressive guy living in Atlanta. Came to America from Cameroon when he was young. Got him hired and working for AWS. I could go on. I got a whole ridiculous list of people over here that we've trained and gotten hired. So yes, we can easily train you, and you can easily get hired if you do our work. The key is, I always say, it's not just buying our course, it's doing our course. I never want to take someone's money for them to buy our course unless they want to do the work. Buy the course, do the work, stay in the course until the day you're hired, and you'll have a great career. Because we don't quit on you unless you quit on you.
You definitely have a saying, the program works if you do. Back to Simon. Since 98% of clouds are multi-cloud, should small businesses also use multi-cloud even if their budget is limited? Also, how can they handle this situation?
Simon, the first thing we need to figure out, what are the business requirements? We can't make any recommendations until we know the business requirements. So without the requirements, I don't know. How much does that small business lose per minute if the systems are down? But Simon, I'd like to ask you this. Let's say you got $1 million budget, right? Is it more expensive to put $500,000 in AWS and $500,000 in Azure? Or to spend the whole $1 million in AWS? So it doesn't matter. Divide your systems in half and put them in two clouds and set up ALA scouting so that if one cloud fails, the other one just goes. And you don't have that problem. So your business needs to design your architecture. And I can't give you any information about any architecture project without knowing what the goals are. So that's the thing. Now, Simon, if you came to my office and you said, which pill should I take, Mike? I'm sick. Don't you think I might ask, Simon, what brings you in today? And you'd tell me something, and I could say, tell me what makes this better. In your experience, tell me what makes this worse. I might ask, what have you tried and done in the past? I might then do a physical exam on you and look for things that look abnormal before I'd make a diagnosis. And I wouldn't even prescribe a pill until I knew what problem I was fixing. So that's the same thing with architecture. I can't make an architecture until I know what is the goal, what are the business needs, what are the requirements, what's working and what's not working. So that's kind of what we need to do. But all in all, here, Amazon, you can have it all. Now, Here, Amazon, I'm going to give you 50% or 100%. Microsoft, I'm going to give you 50% or 100%, and based on the deal you give me. Now, when they know there's competition, they're both going to give you better prices. And it might actually be cheaper to put 50% in one and 50% in another than it would be to put it 100% in one place. So as a rule, I don't like putting 100% of my eggs in one basket. I don't have a portfolio where I buy only one stock. I prefer to diversify my portfolio for lower risk, but I don't know the needs, and I can't ever make a recommendation without that.
Tin Man, I liked the video with you and Christine about interview confidence. Any tips on confidence for yourself when beginning your change from one industry to learning another industry?
Tin Man, I went from healthcare to tech. First job was a senior role. Here's my tips. The first thing that you need to know, and we actually have a document, Tyrone, if you have access to it, on how to change careers into tech. I'd love you to get that. But the first thing to know is what is the exact job you want. Most people have this problem because they try to learn everything. And I need you to be very specific on your goals. There's actually this scary cloud boot camp that's out there that trains everybody to the same. And what do I mean by that? They tell you you can be a solutions architect, a DevOps engineer, and a cloud admin in the same class. Tin Man, if you believe that, I got some swampland to sell you in Florida. Do you think you could train a physician, an attorney, and an accountant all in the same class? Or do you think they need different training? Do you think a physician, a pharmacist, a nurse, and a doctor all need different training, even though they're in the same field? Of course they do, and that's why their education varies dramatically. So I'd like you to keep that in the back of your mind. So the first thing is you need to pinpoint exactly the goals that you have. And then I need you to go to an expert in that field. So I'm an expert on architecture careers, enterprise architecture, cloud architecture, and network architecture careers. I can guide you on those. Now, if you ask me about an application of architect, I really couldn't guide you because I don't know that role. So I need you to find an expert, and an expert's going to be defined as a principal architect or better, or a principal engineer or better, or whatever the principal or distinguished level is in your career. Then I needed to find out from them the exact list of skills that you need. And let's say they give you 50 skills. Then I'm going to need you to ask them to prioritize, of these 50 skills, which are the most critical ones. And you take those most critical ones and you approach them with a laser-like focus and the seriousness of a ferocious lion. Attack, attack, attack. And if it's 10 out of 50, you master 100% of those 10 to that point where you know them, where you can live them, eat them, breathe them, and sleep them. Then, Tin Man, when you're changing jobs, I still want you to spend time learning those other things, but focus on the big ones. Then, Tin Man, I need you to understand this. Your interview is only 50% of you and your new tech career, and the other 50% is, what the hiring manager wants. And what are those things that the hiring manager wants? First, Tin Man, it's competency or the ability to do the job. Unfortunately, if you're new, you're going to be less competent than people that are more experienced. That's just reality. So we got to win on other cases. I'm going to teach you what those are. So the reason I want you to focus on the 10 or whatever it is, the most critical ones, is they're the things the hiring manager is going to ask you about. And they're the things that the jack of all trades with 20 years still won't know. So you can compete by being great at the things that matter the most. Next, what do hiring managers want? Someone they can trust. Tin Man, 99% of the time, somebody lies to me on an interview and the interview's over. So if you don't know the answers to say something, just say, I'm sorry, I've not had the opportunity to learn that technology yet. But I'm highly energetic, I'm highly enthusiastic, and I love technology. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I can find those answers to things that I don't know very quickly. If you want to check my competency, let's talk about this, this, and this, which are those 3 things that you know, and guide them to what you know best. The next thing that employers want are people that communicate well. So make sure you know how to communicate well. Now, the next thing they're looking for is energy, enthusiasm, and passion. So get healthy, get strong, get fit, and raise your energy, and show some enthusiasm and excitement for what you need to do. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, next, they want to hire what's called an energizer and emotionally intelligent people. So work on your emotional intelligence. Definitely. Now, after that, I need you to show that you're a great team player and convey that and do it and live it, eat it and breathe it. And then show that employer that you're willing to go above and beyond. And you'll be there regardless of what time of the day it is or what they ask. As long as it's legal, you'll do it for them. You convince that, you can get any job you want. And that's the key. So the reason I told you to answer the question is now you know everything that hiring managers are looking for, Tin Man. So if they ask you a question which you don't know, instead of lying like 98% of the people do, and the interview is over once somebody lies, just say, I'm sorry, I've not had the opportunity to learn the technology yet, but, and here's the good news, nobody remembers anything before a but in a sentence. Neuro-linguistic programming teaches us that. So I haven't learned that technology, but I'm energetic, I'm enthusiastic, and I really love technology. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I can find the answers to things quickly. If this is important to you, I go way above and beyond and learn these things. If you want to check my competence, let's talk about this, this, and this. Why? You just showed them you're energetic, you're enthusiastic, and passionate. You showed them they can trust you. You show you know what you know, and you know what you don't know, which is really important to employers. And you pointed them to the things that you do know. So they now trust you. They see your energy, enthusiasm, passion, willingness to go above and beyond. And that's what you do. So kind of keep that. And then master those things and spend your time, Tin Man, explaining technology. Look, nobody's going to ask you to code or configure for an architect because we don't do that anyway. But they're going to ask you to explain technology. And you better be able to explain the technology in the form of what is the tech, how does the tech work, and what business benefits does it provide. You do that and you'll have an easier time. Join me completely free. And on the Completely Free webinar tomorrow, I'll interview you. We can talk. You can ask me questions, and I can even assess your strengths, weaknesses, and goals. And I'll do anything I can completely free to help get you there. My team, make sure you pop the first architect job guide, why tech skills are not enough, in the chat box for everyone that's here. I want them to have as many opportunities as possible. I want them to earn as much as possible, and I want them to be successful in changing careers. And make sure we also have the how to get your first job guide and the tech why tech skills are not enough. That's your secret, Tim. That's why I've been getting so many people with no background hired for years. We train all the things employers care about, not just the tech.
Back to Abdallah. If I take the cloud architecture course, will I get a job immediately? I think we already saw.
We already answered this.
Yes, what are the available branches that I can take with you in the architecture field?
Well, Abdallah, you've got multiple options. The training that we provide is really optimized for a cloud architect, with the more executive skills because they're going to earn more. Now, we provide extremely deep security training, and so many of people have taken our training and become cloud security architects after our training because they desired that. Some people that are passionate about networking, because we've got so many CCIEs on staff and we go CED on networking, have also gotten cloud network architect training from us, and that's another path. But Abdullah, if I had a recommendation for you, I would say keep it generic. I really would. And a generic architect, can earn hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So basically, when it comes to tech, you have two sets of skills. And I can't tell you which skills you should learn, but I can tell you that the closer you are to the business, the more you will earn. And I'll also show you the closer you are to the tech, the less you will earn. So I like to be more business oriented, more business focused. And, that's just me. But let me give you, I'll show you a couple of salaries to prove my point of why I like to be close to the business. And we're also going to talk about what are those things that get you to earn more. And again, it's going to be your business acumen, it's going to be your sales skills, and it's going to be your executive presence. So let me show you some principal architect jobs and other business jobs. I'm going to start with Amazon, who's probably the lowest payer of these architecture roles. And I'm going to start with the principal architect over at AWS. Tyrone, share that for a minute. Amazon's architects are a touch more techy than some of the other architects. And you can see that it pays fairly well with an average salary of $372 for a principal architect. Like I said, I was a principal architect in less than 2 years. With the right training, you can do great. But here's what I want you to see. See that wacky pay range of $291 to $491? That's based on a couple of things. One is how good your interview is. And it's also based on how good you sell, and it's based upon your business acumen. So if you're focusing on the techie side of that, and you're not a good sales rep and you have no low business acumen, you're going to earn closer to 291. If you're one of my students and you focus on the business acumen and you listen to me and focus on the business acumen, you can earn potentially $200,000 more per year. So you got a choice. Where do you want to be? I got to tell you, I'm not focused on the techie business. I'll show you another architect job, and then I'll show you two more architect jobs, and I'll show you some business jobs. And the reason I like these business jobs is it's relatively easy to transition into business jobs from architect jobs. Because so Tyrone, you can show this. This is a principal architect at Microsoft. And again, I want you to notice the same thing. The average pay, fairly similar to Microsoft at $379, a little more. But look at that pay range of $300 to $495. That's your sales skills, everybody. That's your business acumen. I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. And how good you interview. That's how desirable you are. Now, Google pays a little more for their architects. I'll give you that example, and then we're going to get into some other great jobs that pay well, that are tech-based. Principal architect at Google, again, we are tied to sales, so sales has a big impact on our salary. Now, I want you to get even closer. Average pay is $508,000 a year for a principal architect at Google, but look at that pay range, $394 to $677. The techies of the techies are earning $394. The people that are closing big deals like me and billion-dollar deals like me are earning $677. So I want you to think about that at the back of your mind. And I'll show you some other tech jobs to prove a point of why I'm so obsessed with business acumen. Here we've got a senior director at Palo Alto. Again, another job. You could easily get one of these coming out of a good architecture position. And you can see over here a senior director at Palo Alto, Tyrone showed that, is about $540,000 a year. But again, look at that range, $425 to $709. Your soft skills, your emotional intelligence, your executive presence, your business acumen, that makes up your sales skills, almost $300,000 there. So I want you to think about that. And I'll just give you one more over at, I'll show you Cisco, another senior director at Cisco. So you don't think the Palo Alto one was an anomaly. Here you can see we've got the same role at Cisco, where I come from. Average pay is $527 for a senior director, and you could go from an architect to a senior director. Look at that pay range, is $417 to $698. Again, almost $300,000. And what does it all come down to? It comes down to your business acumen, your sales skills, your executive presence, and your emotional intelligence. So you can do anything you want in your architecture career, but I recommend you focus on the business. I recommend you focus on digital transformation. Your wallet will thank you. Your vacation homes that you can easily pay for in cash will thank you. And you'll be able to retire when you want. Like me, I retired at 34, but I saw what was out there in cloud training and I felt obligated to come back. So I did, and I'm here. And I've got students hired almost every day. I hope I answered your question. Please ask more questions. We truly want to help you. Alonzo and I are here for one reason. We love to help people.
Back to Simon. Is responding to an RFP a transferable skill? How can you demonstrate expertise when joining a new company, Mike?
Very easily. If they ask you a question on it, you'll tell them how. So if I asked somebody that didn't know how to respond to an RFP, and they said, oh, yeah, I just write the response, I know they've never done it. Now, if Alonzo said, Mike, actually ask me a question, what's the process for an RFP for $1 billion architecture?
Michael, what is the process for an RFP for a multi-million-dollar organization?
Okay, Simon, so Alonzo, let's talk about it from the beginning. If we're really strategic like we should be and like I would be, we're already at that client site, 3, 6, 9 months ahead of the time where we think that RFP is going to be issued. And we're there to try and influence the RFP to do the things that we do best. So we're spending time with our clients, we'll be learning our clients' need, we'll be entertaining our clients, and we're going to build that relationship and show them why they need our stuff. And the RFP, we're going to get it geared to us. Now, once that RFP comes in, Alonzo, we have to look at the scope of the RFP. For $1 billion architecture, for example, that RFP could be 127 pages of questions. And there's no way that one person could actually respond to that. So with $1 billion RFP, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my architecture team. And I'm going to go to my management and I'm going to justify why I need it. And I'm going to get all those people I need. I'm going to get subject matter experts from networking, security, IAM, big data, data science, engineering, and everyone. Now, Alonzo, we're going to hire a project manager as part of this team, and I'm going to work side by side with that project manager. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to divide the RFP into the following sections so we get the right sections to the right people. And I'm going to leverage that project manager to make sure the people deliver the responses on time. Now, when we're done with that, the responses are going to come to me. And I'm going to normalize them and make sure they all make sense for the architecture based upon the customer needs that I need. And then when this is done, Alonzo, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the tech writers. And the tech writer is going to edit and make sure that our RFP looks good. I'm going to hire the graphics team to take the designs that our architects actually put together and the engineers help put together. And they're going to redo them in Adobe InDesign and make them beautiful. Then we're going to deliver the RFP before it's due. And we're going to give them printout copies of it, and we're going to send electronic copies of it. Now, Alonzo, did you believe I've done an RFP before after that?
I'd say so, Mike.
Yeah, so Simon, that's the key. The way you answer your questions will demonstrate your expertise. It's the same way if I ask someone, what is S3? And they said, S3 is object storage. And I say, what is S3? And they say, it's object storage. I know they know nothing about it. But Simon, if I say to them, what is object storage? And they say, Mike, object storage is a type of storage area network, which means it's accessible over a network and its performance is limited by the network. Now let's talk about object storage. When we leverage object storage, we take our data and we break our data down into an object. And when we break that data into an object, we effectively have a database-like structure which points to the data in our storage area network. Now that object will have some metadata, which is really cool because it's data about the data. And by having that data about the data, we can find what we need and when we need it. Now, Alonzo, since you asked me this question about object storage, let's talk about its strengths, weaknesses. So its strengths are that it's write once, read many times, which makes it really good for backup and archival purposes, software distribution, video distribution, etc. But because it's write once, read many, it's write once, read any time, we can't use it to mount it to a server. We would need to use a different storage for that. The reason we can't mount object storage to a server is the way object storage works is anytime anything is even modified by a little bit, it creates a new version which will fill up our storage area network. So Alonzo, imagine I've got a server with 4 terabytes of DRAM, and that means it's going to have a 6 terabyte swap file. That means, 100,000 times a minute when that swap file is modified, we create these 6 terabyte objects, and it would be too expensive. So you can think of object storage as a great environment for big data because of the data, because of the metadata. You can use it for backup and archival purposes and software distribution. Now, Alonzo knows that I know object storage, but by the way, I explained it. So it's why we as a company focus so much on making sure our people can explain technology, because that's how they're going to know. Give you a little more tip, Simon? Don't put anything on your resume down that you can't explain. Because guess what? We're going to ask you what's on your resume. And I got to tell you, Simon, 98% of resumes are full of lies. And when we hiring managers get those resumes, we ask them about the things that we think are lies. And the reason we do that is if somebody lied to us, we can't hire them. It'd be like marrying someone. You can't marry who you don't trust. So that's why we quiz people what's on their resume. But that's how you do it.
Well done, Mike.
Thank you. I thought an example in real time would be a little better.
From Lusal. Roles such as an enterprise architect are much closer to the executive position, and the more executive, the higher you get paid. That said, how many years of experience is required for these roles?
Luca, so I gave you a large list of people that have gotten big paying jobs with 0 experience for us. I told you Jennifer Ema earlier today, who was a mental health tech whose first job was an architect. I talked about Jermaine Houston, whose first job was an enterprise architect with no background. I talked about Wallace Agana, who again became an enterprise architect for JP Morgan Chase with no background. I talked about Lenny, whose first job was an architect and his last job was a video editor. I talked about Delroy, whose last job was working as an EMT on an ambulance, an emergency medical technician, whose first job with us was a cloud security architect. Talked about Jordan Kitco, for example, that was hired by AWS as an architect with 0 work experience whatsoever. I told you about Daniel Boso, who we trained, who got his first architect job at JP Morgan Chase, and he didn't even graduate high school. I talked about Richard Farrar at MUF Bank, who got hired with zero background. I talked about Noah Parker, who was a social worker, whose first job was a solution architect over at Ahead. I talked about Vladimir, who was a 24-year-old college student that, again, got his first solution architect with us. Al Legister's first job was a senior solution architect over at Deloitte, and you're right, it is an executive position. And I can give you and many more examples as you want, or if you want to watch early in the video, I went through many more. My team will buzz me at some point because they don't want to mention like 1,000 names. But here's the key. It's not your experience. It's your skill. I can tell you many 50-year-olds that have a 23-year-old manager, because that manager comes at them with great leadership skills, great executive presence, otherwise known as gravitas, and great acumen and business acumen. So it's your skills that determine your salary and how far you get, not your years of experience. I was a principal architect. Well, I left internal medicine. I was a lead architect inside of 6 months. From the time I left internal medicine, I was a nurse practitioner practicing internal medicine. I will tell you that I was a senior architect with 6 months experience, and I told you I was a principal architect with less than 2 years experience. So you're right, it is an executive. But I know people whose first job was an enterprise architect that came out of selling landscaping gear. How good are your skills? What can you do for other things? And keep that in the back of your mind.
Alan, hi, Mike. There are a few internships as an enterprise and solution architect available. Should I apply?
Alan, I know you. You are super smart, super motivated, and super capable. Somebody wants to give you a $100,000 internship as an architect, go take it. But I see you as someone that once the economy loosens up a little bit, will have plenty of architect options, because I see a lot in you. You remind me so much of some of the most high potential people I've ever met. Your attitude, your energy, your enthusiasm, the ability for you to hold down 2 jobs right now while you're learning. Alan, I'm very proud of you. And Alonzo, you know Alan too, and you know what I'm saying is true.
Very, very smart. He is definitely a crown jewel in who we are as developers for a program, instructors. He takes well to the program. He's a great person to speak with, great personality. He absorbs knowledge like a sponge, and he's able to execute effectively. And he's come such a long way. So I am very proud of Alan.
It is. And to be fair, I love my students, and everybody knows that as a student of mine. But Alan, you hold a special place. I know you. We've spoken, and I've got really big ambitions for you in the future.
Back to Abdallah. What is the difference between a data center architect and a solutions and cloud architect?
Okay, great question. So I'm going to start with the solutions architect. Here's what a solutions architect is. Somebody that works for a company and only designs, presents, and sells a single vendor's equipment. So if you're an AWS solutions architect, you can only really work at one company, AWS, and you design and present and sell with AWS stuff. Now, what is a cloud architect? Someone that designs the end-to-end solution on whatever technology is needed. Now, Abdallah, I want you to think about this. 98% of organizations are multi-cloud, which means if you only know AWS or only know Azure, only 2% of the companies hiring architects can hire you, and you don't have a valuable skill. And here's why I don't like that skill. So let's say I'm on AWS and I want to design a secure infrastructure. If I'm an AWS solutions architect, I'm going to be trained in AWS WAF. I'm going to tell you right now, AWS WAF doesn't compare to a checkpoint security solution next generation firewall, or a Palo Alto next generation firewall, or a Fortinet next generation firewall, or a Cisco next generation firewall. So I don't, and I mean, early in my career, sure, I did take a solutions architect type role, but I've never been in an environment where I can ever satisfy any customer's need with a single vendor stuff. So when I train cloud architects, lots of them get hired as solutions architects, but they can also be the end-to-end solution. So keep that in the back of your mind. Solution architect, more technical, cloud architect, less technical. Now, a data center architect is someone that designs the data center. Guess what? They're the best cloud architects, and here's the reason why. What if I tell you, Abdullah, that there's nothing different between AWS's data center and any other data center that I've worked on for the last 30 years? They're using the same routers, they're using the same switches. For the most part, they're using the same type servers with the same processor architecture, the same DRAM architecture, and the same storage. They're using the same storage area networks. It's the same. So what all a cloud is renting space in somebody else's data center. So when we train cloud architects, we teach them how they can design in the data center. We teach them how they can design in AWS, Azure, OpenStack, or any cloud there. So you can think of it as solutions architect as someone that's trained on how to drive a Mercedes. And you can think of a cloud architect as somebody that can drive any car in the world. Which would you rather learn? How to be able to drive any car or how to drive one? So the reason we train cloud architects this way is in solution architect training, they just tell you about the name of this service thing, okay? And how the service works. I mean, how to configure that service. Can you really design based on technology you don't understand? Could you really cook a meal if you didn't know what the foods are and the ingredients and how to combine the ingredients? Of course you couldn't. So our cloud architects can design the data center, and they can design the public cloud, the hybrid cloud, the private cloud. So Abdallah, why did we do this 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Did we focus on cloud architects and not solution architects? I'm going to tell you right now. First, I knew 4 years ago that nobody would be crazy enough to put all their eggs in one basket or a single cloud. Now, in those days, there were until all the cloud outages started. And now 98% of organizations use multi-cloud. I also know, and I can tell you right now, I've done these experiments with my student, I can buy a server for about 600 grand from Dell. Really big, powerful, beefy server, like 192 cores, for example, 6 terabytes of DRAM and an NVMe RAID array. Now, to get that same performance on AWS, it would cost me $6 million over 4 years versus the 600,000, just for that single server. So we knew companies were going to wake up and say, wait a second, this is crazy. We took all our stuff to the cloud. Now it costs 3 to 10 times more. Now we want to go back to the data center. Does that matter for us cloud architects? Not at all. We'll put their stuff in the data center. We'll have OpenStack cloud installed or the Nutanix cloud software installed. We'll put 50 or 60% of our workloads that require better performance and lower latency and higher security and lower cost in our private cloud. And then we'll add capacity to the public clouds. Or we'll say, let's say we're going to use proprietary solutions. Maybe we'd use Google BigQuery as the data warehouse, for example. Maybe we'd use Microsoft for our artificial intelligence. And maybe we would use some storage and compute on Amazon. So for me, I need access to everything that I need to improve my client's business. It's not good enough to just only know how to use one tool. I view being a solution architect as saying, I can only go to one restaurant and I can order anything off of that menu. Now, I got to tell you, Alonzo and I were pretty similar. We might want to go to Morton's one day. The next day, we might want to go to Ruth's Chris because it's a little different. Then we want some seafood and we're going to Swiss and Malinsky. Then Alonzo and I decide we're going to drink some good scotch, right? And now we got to go find a place with some Macallan 25 for us to go there. And then, periodically, once a year, Alonzo and I may want to go to a cigar bar too, right? Maybe in Miami or Palm Beach or something like that. And I would never limit myself to one store. I would never limit myself to one cloud. I would provide the best of the best. My wife has a Toyota. Why? It's the best car in the world. It really is. I have a Mercedes. Why? Because it's got seats that don't hurt my back with 5 herniated discs. I'd prefer the Toyota. It needs less maintenance. It doesn't break as often. Everything about it is better, really, seriously. But the seats aren't good. So I buy the car that has the seats because I've got back issues. And that's really what it's about. I come from healthcare, and healthcare, it's about what does best. So when I practiced internal medicine, I didn't just prescribe drugs from Pfizer. I mean, Pfizer's a great drug company, seriously. But Merck had some good drugs, which I would use. Roche had some good drugs, which I would prescribe my patients. Eli Lilly had some good medications that I would prescribe my patients. I want access to the best tools for the job. So I hope that explains the difference. Solution architect, you're stuck in a single vendor and that's it. Cloud architect, you're stuck with everybody. A true data center architect would only do the data center, but today's world, cloud architects are putting cloud software in the data center.
John Paul, do cloud architects need to hit certain sales goals? Is it stressful?
Paul, yeah, we got to hit certain sales goals, 100%. Now, do I find it stressful? I find it to be the easiest job you've ever had in your life. So, John Paul, in my youth, I was a firefighter paramedic. That was a tough, stressful job, I got to tell you. Most of the time we watched around, but it was 1% terror. Then I practiced healthcare. And, you know, when you have 40 patients that want to see you in a single day, that's stressful. Then I worked as an engineer, John Paul, for the worst 6 months of my life. And why do I say it was the worst? This guy's screaming at me to do stuff. This guy's screaming at me. This girl's screaming at me. This guy's screaming at me. Then it was like, Mike, I need you to come in at 2 o'clock in the morning to make changes when the network's not busy. That was the worst job I ever had, John Paul. And if you ever see me work as an architect, it's because I owe money to the mob. And there's no way that I would owe money to the mob. So chances are, if I never had to, I would never be an engineer again. Then I became an architect, John Paul. And here's what my job really was. Go talk to someone and ask them about their business. Take them to lunch. Talk to them some more about their business. Take them to dinner at a nice restaurant and drink some cocktails with them and get them to loosen up, to open up. Take them to go play golfing on the golf course. Guess what? You learn a whole lot about the people's business and their goals. And I got to tell you, I took golf lessons to be an architect. Now, I don't understand American football whatsoever, but I've been to the Super Bowl and those fancy box seats because, you know, I took my client there. I think they were trying to take a ball from one side of the field to the other side of the field, and people were trying to stop it, but I don't understand that game at all. But still, I went there. Now, when it comes to sales, you got to remember, you're going to have a whole sales team. You're going to have an account manager or the sales rep that's with you. And they're going to be focusing on trying to sell, and you're going to be assisting them in the sales. So we're not like sales reps where if we miss a quarter or 2 quarters, we get fired. It's not like that. But if we can't sell and we can't learn to sell, we're not going to be sticking around long. And our salary will be hundreds of thousands of dollars less if we can't sell. So yes, we need to hit certain sales goals, and it is not stressful at all. Now, being a sales rep is stressful, but we're kind of somewhat protected. We're in a really sweet spot. We don't touch the tech, which is great, so we don't have any of the stress of stuff not working. And we're not exactly the person, if we miss our number, we get fired. So this is the sweet spot of all jobs. I personally love being an architect. I've had other tech jobs, I got to tell you, John Paul, but nothing like this. I actually consider being an architect the most fun job I had. And as a matter of fact, John, I every day as an architect, I used to come home. Now, John, I have a rule. If you want to be truly and happy in life, you got to be grateful for the things you have, and you got to minimize the things that you actually want. And every day I would come up with a list of things that I'd have. And it was always my wife, who I'm really grateful has been with me for 28 years. She's terrific. These days, it's my cat, Cindy, in addition to my wife. She's only been with me for 3 years, but boy, that cat's the second love of my life. And I used to thank my lucky stars for having a job where people paid me to literally come in and live the life of my dreams. I mean, to me, it was the best thing that ever happened. So how about you, Alonzo? How do you feel?
I think it's exciting. I mean, you got to reach it. Any job you have to strive to get from point A to point B. Your job is to help the company be successful. So you're always going to have some sort of goal one way or the other, whether it's sales goals or anything of that matter. But stress, I don't think so, because I think it's so much fun. I'm working with people who are helping to solve problems. I get a chance to work with different people about different solutions, using different tools, architecting, working together, and ultimately presenting and driving it home and getting that deal. I live for that. I think it's such a challenge to be able to find solutions where people haven't looked or haven't considered, reinvigorate the project, showcase skills and talent, and be able to impress people that may have heard it and been there and done that, and being able to do something totally different and be able to win the day. That's my personal. I love it. So stress, no. The challenge, I love. There will be challenges, but it's all about what you want. Going after what you really want to do for the rest of your life, getting really good at it, showcasing your skills, helping people along the way, and being able to make change everywhere you go in any project. Back to Abdallah. Should I buy an elite bundle to get hired, or the Cloud Architect program, or is the Cloud Architect program enough?
Abdullah, well, first we have to understand your goals to make the right recommendation. But I will tell you the Cloud Architect program is more than enough to get your first architect job. So what is the difference between our Cloud Architect program and our Lead Architect program? Well, the Cloud Architect program itself is just everything you need to get your first architect job. And it includes everything from the underlying technology, learning how to sell, learning how to present, learning how to lead, learning how to interview, learning how to negotiate, learning how to build your brand, learning how to give the killer presentation, everything you need to be an architect. And it is more than enough. Now, Abdullah, if you notice when I showed you these, $200,000 to $300,000 pay range between the top architects and the bottom architects, that's why we created the Elite Architect Bundle. And what's in that that's different? It's the same Cloud Architect program. It is. But it also includes a special interview training program, which our interview training is incredible. It also includes a lot more negotiation training to help you negotiate a higher salary. And that tech leadership program is in there. And that tech leadership program is a program like nothing else in the world. So Alonzo, what did your MBA cost?
150,000 plus.
Okay, so, I have an MBA, and, when and the things that are taught in an MBA, that business acumen, that can raise your salary in one of these jobs $150,000. But what's wrong with the MBA? Inside of the MBA program, they didn't teach me about executive presence. They didn't. They didn't teach me about CXO relevancy. They didn't. They didn't teach me how to close large sales and large deals. They really didn't teach me how to focus on leading or executive presence. I wish they did. So the company that I work for spent about $100,000 after my other 2 master's degrees, including an MBA, just to be good. So that's really all that we're putting at in that elite program. It's the Cloud Architect program, which is more than enough to get your first job. It really is. Then the next thing that it's at is interview training, so you can be better, to earn more on that interview and look more attractive to the employer. And then the last thing is business acumen. So over time, you will earn more in your career. And we didn't just create this program ourselves. We have 3 MBAs that are teaching in this in our architect program, 2 PhD business school professors, etc., that are there. So if it's your goal is just to get your first architect job, take the Cloud Architect program. It's the lowest cost option, and it's more than enough. But we created that elite program for people that want more, that have bigger long-term goals, that want to be big enterprise architects that are literally looking for those $400,000 to $800,000 architect jobs several years in a row. I hope I answered your question there, and please feel free to answer more.
From Buyer Mom, what advice do you have for someone who desires to use the cloud architect or enterprise architect knowledge to create their own business? How can we leverage this knowledge to create a business, Mike?
Barryman, do you mean it as an architect business or a different business? And I'll tell you what I mean by this. What we teach, which is how to, in our architect program, we'll teach people how to optimize a business that exists. And honestly, those skills you could use to build your business. You really could, any business. But, and here's the but, I don't think you'll ever be successful in creating your own architecture business. And here's the reason why, Barryman. Alonzo is my customer. I'm going to basically, and now I'm going to give you an example. Hi, Alonzo. I'm Joey the architect. I know you've never met me, but I've got great architecture skills and I want to design an architecture for your multi-billion-dollar business. Look at Alonzo's face. Now, watch this. Hi, Alonzo. It's Mike Gibbs from Cisco. We wanted to talk to you about your business. To let you know, Cisco is the #1 or #2 technology company in the entire world. Our organization has helped nearly every bank, every healthcare institution, and every internet service provider improve their business. I come to you with a staff of 80,000 of the world's best architects and engineers in the world. Now, would you like to talk to us about how we can optimize your business?
Absolutely, Mike. Let's schedule a meeting.
So, and that's really the key. So the key is if you want to have your own architecture business, how are you going to get sales? How are you going to deliver your project? See, for me, I can, after working as an architect for the last 25 years, I got a phone full of every chief information officer and chief executive officer, big companies you can think of. And if I called Alonzo after he knew me and said, hey, Alonzo, it's Mike. Hey, you've done work for me in the past. How are you, Mike? You know, I decided to start my own architecture practice. He'd take me seriously. But if I was brand new, how are you going to do it? So Barry, man, I tell people, if you want to start your own architecture consulting company, make sure you have at least $50 million. And why do I spend $50 million? Because you're going to need about $20 million of marketing to go out there and build your brand. And you're going to have to compete against Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, who can throw $10, $20 million at you just to destroy you and your business like it's nothing. And they will. And they can offer things at different prices to price you out of the market. And they're going to have the entire end of the spectrum, meaning they can take any issue that you have and solve it. They'll have a team of thousands of engineers, typically in another country, doing the engineering. They'll have a team of specialty architects. So yes, we could teach you how to build a business, but I don't think opening an architecture business is a very good idea to do. I wouldn't do it. And I actually have the context. I know that to really close a deal, a good deal, might cost $1 million. And do you have that $1 million to invest in a client just to close that that $30, $40 million deal? I also know if you want to be an architect, ultimately you're going to have somebody that can build the stuff that you design. And that means a team of people. So you're going to have the budget to hire those people. So I hope I answered your question. How to become a cloud architect? I could train you for that and you can do great. Now, if you're earning $300,000 as an architect, you really need to start your own business anyway. Or can you take that $300,000 you do and maybe invest $250,000 of in real estate each year and buy yourself a conglomerate of properties? And if you can buy 2 properties per year, and that's enough to put down, and the rent can pay those mortgages off, inside of 15 years, you own 30 properties that are basically fully paid off. Maybe 20 years. I hope that makes sense to you. And then you can live on the retired rents. Or you can invest it other ways. I'm not getting investment advice here, but I just want you to think about it that way. But trying to start an architecture business, I strongly don't recommend it.
Yeah, imagine you've got people who've been doing cloud architects. Cloud technology has been around since the 90s. So you're looking at 30 plus years of organizational experience, resources, connectivity, know-how, and the relationships they built throughout the entire network. Now, realistic, look at it from your perspective, Baraman. You are basically unknown with less than a fraction of what their resources are, and you are asking them to entrust their resources, multi-million-dollar implementation, business, reputation, resources, and so forth into your hands. I'm not saying that, one day you couldn't be some really awesome guy, but you have to look at it from a business perspective on what you bring to the table versus what dozens, if not hundreds of other organizations with the resources and know-how and relationships. You're going directly head to head with these people and organizations. Simon, as a business CEO, how do you research and write articles on new technologies or business topics?
So Simon, I'm going to argue that there hasn't been any new technologies in decades. And now you're going to say, but what about all this cloud stuff? So we used to be able to look at the flow that was going through the switches, the Cisco switches, and it was called NetFlow. Amazon in 2020 has VPC flow logs that look just like NetFlow. Now, Amazon made a massive, exciting announcement about a year ago that they now allow IPsec over a direct connection. Now, those of us that have been in the industry for the last few decades realize that Cisco ran IPsec over a private line in 1998, and that's when I did it. So I got to tell you, a lot of the new technologies are just similar versions of the old technologies. But Simon, I'm a busy CEO, so how do I get my information? Well, I speak to tech leaders all over the world that have access to the best information because we're friends, we're peers, we've known each other for decades. I have a staff. My staff is out there constantly doing research for me. If I want to do research on something, I take some of the experts on my team and I say, I want you to collect research from me. And my team knows not to go to a Medium blog. They know not to go to a YouTube video, and they know which periodicals and which professional journals to get accurate information from. They present that information to me, and then I look at the information, I run it past, I read the information, and I'm in a position to do so. So I delegate a lot. like any other executive would do. But Simon, you have to understand these are things that are my expertise, business topics. I'm a CEO. I know how to run a business. For years, I helped clients optimize their business. I typically read several books per week, and at least for 30 years, I read 2 to 3 books per week. I've been a little behind on that these days because being a CEO is a little busier than you could possibly imagine, but that's been my life. I speak to business school professors almost on every other weekly basis, and they help teach our students as well. So I keep my circle the best and the brightest in the world. I have limited time, so I keep my conversations to the best and the brightest in the world, except for my students, which are also the best and brightest in the world. They just haven't gotten there yet, but they're climbing those ladders pretty quickly. So that's typically how I do things.
You mentioned when understanding and responding to an RFP, cloud architects work closely with project managers. How do these two roles cooperate?
So I got some work that needs to be done, right? I divide everybody into a group of people. Somebody has to keep track of who does what and when it's done on time. That's what the project manager does. The project manager is like a taskmaster. Yo, Joey, I need your response. It was due yesterday. Did you provide it? When are you going to get it to me? I need it by today. Yo, Billy Bob, I need that. That's what they do. So basically, they're the people that are following up, and you speak to them and make sure the things are delivered to you on time. Alonzo, you've been a project manager in your life. You've worked on sales executive proposals. I'm sure you have. What are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, look at it this way, Simon. So say, for instance, the cloud architects, we design, present, and sell. Once it's sold, then it has to be implemented. That takes time. We have to break it down into milestones, who's going to be working on what, RACI charts, a lot of technical things that only project and program managers knowing, understanding who's responsible for what, mitigation of risks, and about 4 dozen other things. From the beginning to the end is what project managers are handling, how this project is going to be successfully accomplished within the time frame, under budget, and on time. So we understand what we're doing, okay? Cloud architects understand what project managers and program managers are doing, and vice versa. However, we're handing the baton off to them and their business and their organization to handle that. Like case in point, once we design, present, and ultimately sell, maybe a management consulting firm may be handling that implementation process, or they might have their own internal resources to do so. But after that, we're done with it, okay? And we move on to another project, but it's also possible that we will be maintaining those relationships. They may need other architectural projects. They may need more implementation thoughts and processes that we need to catch up on and revitalize, or whatever the statement of work entails, and RFPs and so forth. So you're going to have that communication, but we're not doing anything with the program or our project managers. Back to Luçao. Mike, what do you think about the DevOps position? Do you have any DevOps programs?
Luçao Faustino, I think that DevOps is one of the worst things you could potentially do in your career. And let me explain to you why. And that's the reason we don't train DevOps. Now, we used to train cloud engineers, and we stopped training them a while ago too. And here's why I want to tell you. So about a year and a half ago, you may have noticed that we produced a lot of videos that said, get out of engineering. Get out of engineering, get out of engineering. And we talked about why coding careers were the worst thing you can do and why they'd be replaced by AI. And we talked about it. So Luçao Faustino, I want you to think about this. If I need a DevOps engineer, and I'm saying in the US or Italy or Greece, for example, let's say I'm in the US. In California, the average home is $1.4 million, which means I'm going to have to pay a DevOps engineer several $100,000 to do the job. Why would I hire a DevOps engineer in the US when I can hire somebody in India or Africa or Asia that's probably got an equal or greater education, an extreme excitement to work, and that has a lower cost of living? So that's one of the reasons I said engineering, especially now that we work remote, are the positions to get out of. Because now people have to compete with the global world, and it's no longer just the US or the UK or Canada, which means salaries will come down. The second reason, Luçao, that I said, and this is the main reason we got rid of our cloud engineering program a year and a half ago, is writing a Terraform script, which is something a DevOps engineer would do. I can use AI to do that and not pay anybody to do it. Writing a script, again, I can use AI to do it. So all these behind the scene positions, Luca, are ones that are going to easily be replaced by AI. So I see a tremendous number of layoffs in the software engineering field. We're starting to see it, but I think we're going to get a lot more. Lots of hiring in architecture, and I'll tell you why. But I wouldn't do anything related to software development. You can see the NVIDIA CEO said the worst advice people were ever given was learn to code and learning these things, because 2 to 3 years from now, maybe 4 years from now, all code will be written by people like me saying, I need a software program that does X, Y, and Z, and it's just going to do it. So we stopped selling our cloud engineering program a year and a half ago intentionally because we didn't want people buying and training in a career that we thought would be ending in 3 to 5 years. Now, Luca, it's the exact opposite for the architect. All this new technology like AI gets us a lot of jobs, and here's why. The architect is a very person-to-person position. And what do I mean by that? We've got to go to the client. We've got to learn about their business goals. We've got to learn about their business needs, their desires. We have to learn about the processes that business works. We ideally can optimize those business processes. We've got to take them out, entertain clients. We've got to have deep conversations. We've got to do all these things. And all that are human skills that AI can't do. And all these new technologies like AI that get engineers laid off, guess what? Why they're good for us? They're new opportunities for us to improve a business. While AI may cause a company to lay off their software engineers, they're going to come to the architects to be the experts that can help them be more efficient with less software engineers. And sadly, that's been one of the things that I've done through my career. How do we make the company's business? How do we outsource certain things? So, Luca, I don't recommend any engineering careers right now. I recommend the following careers: cloud architect, enterprise architect, security architect, artificial intelligence architect. I'm even okay with an IAM architect, but I don't recommend DevOps. I really don't recommend SysOps. That's the worst career in the world and the lowest paying tech career. It's just as bad as help desk. And I definitely don't recommend DevOps. I hope that makes sense. Now, for people that love DevOps, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think DevOps people are bad. I think they're awesome. But, to me, I'm a part economist. I look at the economy. I'm a financial professional because I need to be an architect. And I look at where the opportunities are. And I look at the skills gap. And I look on the supply and demand curve, where do we have the least number of people that have the skill and the greatest demand, because that equals the highest salary. So we don't teach any architecture. I mean, we teach only architecture. We stopped selling engineering training because we thought it was going to be so bad. And thankfully, we're happy we stopped selling the engineering program when we did, long before all these engineering layoffs occurred. But great opportunity for architects. I can only do 1 or 2 more.
Abdallah, how long does it take to finish the Cloud Architect program? I have a bachelor's degree in software engineering. If I may, Mike, Abdallah, the thing is, it's all up to you. We don't know how fast, how well you can retain this information, how you show up for class, how you ask questions, how you absorb the information, how well you're able to do the assignments, quizzes, how many times that you can present with team projects, and how you exemplify yourself throughout that process. These are all X factors. So say, for instance, you can do all of these things and you do them well and you're able to retain this. It's still going to be 6 to 12 months because we don't know your background. We don't know how you retain this information. So it's all about you focusing on becoming a cloud architect. And I applaud you for being a bachelor and having a bachelor's in software engineering, but software engineering and cloud architecture are 2 different things. Okay. So we're, like I said before in other conversations, we design, present, and sell. We have nothing to do with any type of programming language, no Terraform, no Ruby, no Linux, none of that, no Python, because we don't deal in the command line. Our conversations are face-to-face with humans, understanding their nuances, their backgrounds, their personalities, and how we're able to communicate information to them in the way that they understand, they appreciate, and they desire. Anything outside that realm will get us out of that conversation and out of that room. So I want you to focus on not how long it takes, but being able to have that quality of competency that cloud engineers and hiring managers look for when they're looking for new cloud architects?
And Alonzo's answer is completely correct. I invite you to our free webinar tomorrow. I think I invited you before, but 6 to 12 months is typically when it's going to take. But if you come on the webinar, I can ask you some questions. I can see how you communicate and present yourself, and I can give you a better timeline after an assessment.
From Mateo. Hi, Mike. After hearing so many testimonies from your channel, I desire to work with international as a cloud architect, and I stay in Africa. How feasible is that?
So it is feasible and it is possible. I will tell you right now, the gentleman behind the scenes, his name is Tyrone, and he lives in Cape Town, South Africa. I will also tell you that I have staff, Patrick Eddie Kem, who's rock star, and he lives in Bamenda, Cameroon. So the answer it is possible. But you're going to have to be able to travel to your client's sites to some degree. So in Africa, where would your opportunity be? There's a fair amount of opportunity in Nigeria right now. There's a fair amount of opportunity in the Cameroonian region. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity in South Africa. And as we start getting closer to Egypt and the Middle East, there's also a good amount of opportunity as well. So the answer is yes, it's totally possible. And it's also possible that you could be doing more of these inside sales architecture roles. And what are they? So there's two kinds of architects that are out there. They're the architects like me and Alonzo who go to the client site. But they also have inside sales team people. For example, if I was an architect and I needed to get a pricing strategy done, there's typically some internal architects that can help look at the nitty gritty. In order to use this, we have to add this, we have to add this, we have to add this. And they can be done from any part of the world. So the answer is there. And the other answer is, potentially speaking, you could be trained, you could have a good skill, and you could be brought to another country. Like, for example, I think it was Benedict on my team that was saying that, he left Nigeria and got hired, and after a couple of years, he's now in Canada. So there's all those opportunities as well. But, here's the thing. I'm from Greece, a small village in Greece. And, there's opportunity there, but there's nowhere near as much as there is if you were in, say, London versus Greece. But those markets are pretty big. And with your name, I don't think you're too far from one of those markets that we're discussing.
Richard, Mike playing a devil's advocate. A quick look on job posting still shows a prevalent dominance of engineering and unfulfilled engineer positions despite AI. What explains that?
So, Richard, there's two things going on. I want you to understand the pyramid. There's a lot more jobs for workers to work behind the desk at fast food than there are at McDonald's than there is to be the CEO of McDonald's. I want to make sure that kind of makes sense to you. So the lower the position, the more opportunities there will be. But Richard, there's also something else going on right now with engineers. As engineers are often losing their jobs right now, even though the architects are not, there's companies that are still keeping their postings up there and they're harvesting resumes. And a lot of these are recruiters harvesting resumes. And why are they doing that? They know there's going to be a time when they get rid of some of the people that they have, their lower performers, and they're going to need to go on a hiring spree again, especially when the economy ticks up. And when the architects start designing all these projects that they now need to build. So they're still looking for people, but you got to remember, how many jobs are there to work at McDonald's versus how many CEO positions there are at McDonald's? How many positions are there for nurses in a hospital versus the chief medical officer or the chief nursing officer at the hospital? So, I personally like to train for the top roles, and here's the reason why. At the bottom, you're competing with everybody. At the top, you're competing with almost nobody, other than a few other players that have that elite education and elite training skill. So that's really what's going on, Richard. But I got to tell you, it's a lot easier to get hired if you have architect skills than it is engineering skills. A lot easier. And I wish I could actually handle more questions today. I really do. I wish you guys asked more questions in the beginning because I always really want to help as many people as possible. Guess what? We're going to come back tomorrow between 2 and 4, and Alonzo and I are going to ask more questions. I feel like we couldn't get them all today, We got as many as we could, and I want to be here. So a couple things. Make sure you join us on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar on Thursday. It's on Zoom. We'll have a face-to-face conversation, and we'll do anything we can, answer any questions we have to help you get your first architect job. 2, download that completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job ebook. And ideally, read that before you come to the free webinar and really get an understanding of all the skills. And please, download the Why Tech Skills Are Not Enough, especially in the world of AI. I want all of you to earn more, have a better life, have a better career. And, I just want the best for you. I'd rather you determine which house you're going to purchase, the one in Palm Beach or the one in Miami. That comes from having a great career. So I really just want the best for you. So hope to see more of you soon. Hope to see lots of you on the webinar. And Alonzo and I'll come back tomorrow at the same 2 o'clock. What do they used to say? The same bat channel from the old Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I remember.
So take care, everyone. It was an honor to spend the afternoon with you, and I can't wait to see you more.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow.